with the dwarves? Matthew?
Nickelback felt like that he and his kind were having to go short. He had to go short whenever the rations fell.
He felt like the dwarves were having to do a whole lot more than anybody else and give a whole lot more to this war, and they were kind of being mistreated unfairly. Okay? So what was his plan? He said, you know what? We're not getting the help we wanted from the magic horn. Aslan is not coming. The children are not coming. But I have another plan. What was his plan? Manny? Bring back the White Witch. Very good. What were some of the reasons why he thought it would be a good idea to bring back the White Witch? He gave a lot of reasons to not believe in Aslan, and he gave a lot of reasons for why they should believe in the White Witch. Layla?
Because in the story, Aslan, they say Aslan came back to life, but then he had to say that of the story. Well, what happened? Now we know that they just say that to make him look like such a mighty warrior, and the White Witch was the one who killed him.
Very good. Another one? Brooklyn?
It's kind of like Playwright, but the White Witch killed Aslan, but Aslan was the Witch, so they got him strong.
Okay, very good. And one more. Luke? Very good. Okay, so just for the sake of the recording, because they can't hear y'all very well, we talked about how it was stated that Aslan was raised, came back to life, was raised from the dead, but there's not a whole lot of documentation of him after that, so it's possible that maybe they just said it and it didn't really happen. Talked about how the White Witch reigned for 100 years, so she clearly was a pretty strong ruler. And then what was hers again, Brooklyn? She's stronger because she killed Aslan. Very good. Okay. What happened right as they're about to perform their cantrips or their spells and call up the White Witch? What happens right before they do that? Ian? Okay.
So right before they do that, Cornelia shouts, "What?" Like she's like, "What is happening, people? I'm just an old person. Help me out here."
Okay. Cornelia shouts, "What?" And then who rushes in?
Trumpkin and them people go, "We let's shout, we."
Very good. So
and
Peter.
Also, my second thing was in the movie it said that after Aslan came back to life, he killed the White Witch. So how would the witch still be dead if Aslan killed him? So if Aslan was actually dead, how would the witch would still be alive?
I see your point. Okay, so hold on, let's go back. Peter, Edmund, and Trumpkin rush in right at that moment, and they get into this huge fight. Who is killed in this fight? Jacob?
Nickelbrick,
the hag,
and the werewolf.
And the werewolf. Very good. Okay? And at the end, Prince Caspian finally, after the battle is over, Prince Caspian finally gets to meet King Edmund and King Peter. Okay? Where are Susan and Lucy right now? Luke? They're with Aslan, waking up the trees and gathering troops. Very good. Okay, are these important questions or are they comments? Because we've got to move on. Okay, question? For what? Oh, okay.
It's because Nickelbrick said the dwarves were really well treated by her, even though everybody else wasn't.
Yes, the dwarfs were true.
Her back to benefit.
Very good. Bringing back the White Witch would also, Nickelbrick claimed that would also benefit the Black Dwarfs because she was pretty nice to them. Very good. Okay, so we're going to be on chapter 13 today, the High King in Command. One more thing to note. What does Peter say to Caspian when he meets him? Ian?
He says, like, So so Caspian's like, oh no, all of you. Trump is like, he's the high king Peter.
Mm-hmm.
Peter's just like, Caspian says, hey dude, you really like that.
Okay. Does Peter say he's there to take over?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you need to make it faster. Go.
And then Peter says, no, I'm looking for you.
Very good. Peter says, I am here to help you take the throne. I'm not here to be the king again. Okay, I'm here to help you, Caspian, take over your throne. Okay, so here we go. Chapter 13, page 187. The High King in Command. Now, said Peter, as they finished their meal, Aslan and the girls, that's Queen Susan and Queen Lucy, Caspian, are somewhere close. We don't know when he will act. In his time, no doubt, not ours. In the meantime, he would like us to do what we can on our own. You say, Caspian, we are not strong enough to meet Miraz in pitched battle. I'm afraid not, High King, said Caspian. He was liking Peter very much, but was rather tongue-tied. What does that mean? Says he was tongue-tied. What does that mean? Brooklyn? Not quite confused, Connor?
It was like, he doesn't really know what to say.
Yes, doesn't really know what to say, and this is why. It was much stranger for him to meet the great kings out of the old stories than it was for them to meet him. So it's saying it was much stranger for Caspian to meet these people that lived a long time ago than it was for the Pevensey children to meet Caspian. Very well then, said Peter. I'll send him a challenge to single combat. No one had thought of this before. Please, said Caspian, could it not be me? I want to avenge my father. Okay, what is single combat? Jacob, what do you think?
Single combat is like one-on-one, no army.
Very good. Okay, so it's a one-on-one. So here's the deal. It's kind of a wise move on Peter's part. Okay, yeah, Peter's part. Okay, if his army is much smaller than Miraz's army, he says, you know what? Let's just avoid all this bloodshed. Okay, let's not risk losing multiple people. Let's you and me do a one-on-one. Me, Peter, challenging you, Miraz, to a one-on-one battle. To the death. Whoever loses, loses the war. Okay? That will save many people from dying, and it should be a faster battle for the most part. Okay? Now, why would Miraz not want to agree to that? Manny, what do you think? To a single combat, to a one-on-one. Okay. Let's put it this way. You play basketball?
I do.
Okay. You're going to a basketball game. You have a team of like 10 adult guys, big, tall, like LeBron James kind of guys. And you're going to play against me and 4 of my girlfriends.
Annie.
Do you think you're going to win? Okay, yeah, you probably are. But I say, you know what? Let's not make everybody tired and sweaty. Let's just, me and you, play one-on-one. Are you going to be like, yeah, that's fair?
Yeah.
Why not?
I would.
What? Because I'm an adult and you're not, right? And if we play, I have a pretty good chance of winning, right? But if your team plays my team, do I have a good chance of winning? No. So it would be smarter for you to be like, yeah, I understand that you're at a major disadvantage, but I don't care. We're still going to do this the real way. You see what I'm saying? If you're the team that's at an advantage, you don't want to agree to single combat because you're giving up all of your advantages there, right?
Actually, not all.
All. Shh. If you yell at again, I'm gonna give you a warning. See, now I lost my train of thought. Oh, if you're the team with the advantage, if you agree to single combat, you're making the playing field even. Well, that takes away your big chance of winning. You see what I'm saying? Okay, Cameron, you with me? Okay, pick your head up, girl. Put your book in your desk. That way I know you're with me. Okay, and Caspian says, wait a minute. Can I be the one to fight him? Because I want to avenge my father. What do you mean by that? Connor?
Rhaenyra is killing far as he wants to get revenge by killing Miraz.
Very good. You're wounded, said Peter. And anyway, wouldn't he just laugh at a challenge from you? I mean, we have seen that you are a king and a warrior, but he thinks of you as a kid. But sire, said the badger, who sat very close to Peter and never took his eyes off of him, will he accept the challenge even from you? He knows he has the stronger army. So the badger says, doesn't matter who he fights against. He knows his army is supposed to win, so why would he even agree to that? Peter says, well, it's very likely he won't, said Peter. But there's always the chance. And even if he doesn't, we shall spend the best part of the day sending heralds to and fro and all that. By then, Aslan may have done something. And at least I can expect the army and strengthen the position. I will send the challenge. In fact, I will write it at once. Have you pen and ink, Master Doctor? Okay, there's a couple advantages to sending this challenge. First of all, it might work. Probably not, but he might agree to it. Second of all, sending the challenge will take a good portion of the day. Okay, so if he spends most of the day with a messenger running back and forth, that's wasting time waiting for Aslan to get there. You see what I'm saying? Now, Miraz doesn't know that, but Peter knows that. Okay? And then the third thing is while they're sending messages back and forth, he can at least inspect the army and see if he can make it stronger in some way. Okay? So now he's going to write up the document that will challenge Miraz to one-on-one battle. So he says, have you pen and ink, Master Doctor? A scholar is never without them, Your Majesty, answered Dr. Cornelius. Very well, I will dictate, said Peter. And while the doctor spread out a parchment and opened his inkhorn and sharpened his pen, Peter leant back with half-closed eyes and recalled to his mind the language in which he had written such things long ago in Narnia's golden age. Right, he said at last. And now, if you are ready, Doctor? Dr. Cornelius dipped his pen and waited. Peter dictated as follows. Peter, by the gift of Aslan, by election, by prescription and by conquest, High King over all kings in Narnia, Emperor of the Lone Islands, and Lord of Cair Paravel, Knight of the most noble order of the Lion, to Miraz, son of Caspian VIII, sometime Lord Protector of Narnia, and now styling himself King of Narnia. Greeting. Have you got that? Narnia, greeting, muttered the doctor. Yes, sire. Then begin a new paragraph, said Peter. For to prevent the effusion of blood, and for the avoiding all other inconveniences likely to grow from the walls now levied in our realm of Narnia, it is our pleasure to adventure our royal person on behalf of our trusty and well-beloved Caspian, in clean wager of battle, to prove upon your lordship's body that the said Caspian is lawful king under us in Narnia, both by our gift and by the laws of the Telmarines, and your lordship twice guilty of treachery, both in withholding the dominion of Narnia from the said Caspian, and in the most abominable, don't forget to spell it with an H, Doctor, bloody and unnatural murder of your kindly lord and brother, King Caspian Knight of that name. Wherefore we most heartily provoke, challenge, and defy your lordship to the said combat and monarchy, and have sent these letters by the hand of our well-beloved and royal brother Edmund, sometime king under us in Narnia, Duke of Lantern Waste and Count of the Western March, Knight of the Noble Order of the Table, to whom we have given full power of determining with your lordship all the conditions of the said battle, given at our lodging in Aslan's Howe, this 7th day of the month, Green Roof, In the first year of Caspian 10th of Narnia. There, that ought to do, said Peter, drawing a deep breath. And now we must send 2 others with King Edmund. I think the giant ought to be one. What is Edmund going to do? There's a lot of fancy wording that basically says, okay, we are challenging you, Miraz, to a one-on-one combat. The winner of said battle will be the new ruler of Narnia. Okay? So what is Edmund doing again? I'm sorry, Jacob?
He's bringing, he's going to deliver the message, see if Miraz will accept the challenge. But he's bringing giants, I think, in case they decide to attack.
Good. He's bringing a bodyguard with him. Okay, so Peter says, I think the giant ought to be one to go. He's not very clever, you know, said Caspian. Of course not, said Peter. But any giant looks impressive if only he will keep quiet, and it will cheer him up. Why does he say the giant should go? There's 2 reasons. Matthew?
He will look very impressive and dangerous.
He will look scary even if he's not dangerous, but he'll look scary.
And it'll cheer him up from his last walk.
Yeah, it'll cheer him up from the mistake he made. But who for the other? Upon my word, said Trumpkin, if you want someone who can kill with looks, Reepicheep would be the best. He would indeed, from all I hear, said Peter with a laugh, if only he wasn't so small. They wouldn't even see him till he was close. Send Glenstorm, sire, said Truffle Hunter. No one ever laughed at a centaur. I'm gonna wait for Caleb. Okay, so all that's happened is, since the ending yesterday, we ended with the White Witch being summoned and they came in and fought everyone, right? So now Peter has met Caspian, and Caspian's like, look, our army is not strong enough to fight against the Telmarines. We're gonna lose. So Peter says, okay, I will challenge him to a one-on-one battle. So Peter is sending Edmund with a letter that says, I, Peter, am challenging you, Miraz, to a one-on-one battle, and whoever wins will just declare them the winner of the war. Make sense? Okay. So Edmund's going to deliver the letter, the giant is going with him, and the centaur. Okay? So we're on page 191. An hour later, okay, so see this big break here in the page? Okay? This means that there's kind of like a pause here. Okay? There's a pause in a period of time. Now, we're flipping sides. This part of the chapter is going to give us an insight into the Telmarine camp. Okay? So now we're going to learn about Glozell and Sopespian, who are 2 lords in service of Miraz. Okay? So we're going to kind of get an insight into their camp and see what they have to say. An hour later, 2 great lords in the army of Miraz, the Lord Glozell and the Lord Sopespian, strolling along their lines and picking their teeth after breakfast, looked up and saw coming down to them from the woods the centaur and giant Wimbleweather, whom they had seen before in battle, and between them a figure they couldn't recognize. Who was the third person between them? Brooklyn? Edmund. Nor indeed would the other boys at Edmund's school have recognized him if they could have seen him at that moment. For Aslan had breathed on him at their meeting, and a kind of greatness hung about him. How did Aslan's breath change Edmund? Jacob?
Because Aslan's supposed to be God, and spending time with God could even just change you.
Good. So how does Edmund look now as compared to how he looked before he saw Aslan?
He looks like he was going to fight.
He could have won a fight? Okay, now he does? Yes. Now he looks much more manly, much more kingly, and he has this kind of greatness about him. Okay, after being with Aslan. Sadiq, are you with me or are you doodling? Okay, put that away, please. What's to do? Asked the Lord Glozell. An attack? A parley, rather, said Sopespian. See, they're carrying green branches. They're coming to Serinda, most likely. Okay, so because the two... Cameron, you okay? Okay. Because the two men are, or the three men are walking up, they're like, whoa, what's going on? Okay. A parley is an agreement, basically, that the enemy is approaching the other enemy, but they don't want to fight. Okay. They want to have like a civil talk, not part of the war. It's kind of like calling timeout, right? You're playing a game and you want to talk to someone, you want to call timeout so you don't get tagged, right? Okay. They're kind of calling timeout, saying, hey, we have something to say. And the other sign of that is they're carrying green branches with them. That was a universal signal that they meant peace. Okay? That guy. He that is walking between the centaur and the giant. He has no look of surrender in his face, said Glozell. Who can he be? It is not the boy Caspian. No, indeed, said Sir Caspian. This is a fell warrior, I warrant you, wherever the rebels have got him from. He is in your lordship's private ear. So he's saying, what I'm about to say, don't you ever repeat to the king. He is a kinglier man than ever Miraz was. And what mail he wears! None of our smiths can make the like. So these are two compliments. He's talking about Edmund. He's like, don't tell the king this, but he looks more like a king than our king does. Miraz looks like a dope next to him. I'll wager my dappled Pomley, this is a type of horse. So I'll bet my horse he brings a challenge, not a surrender, said Glozell. How then, said Sir Caspian. We hold the enemy in our fist here. He's like, we're about to win. Miraz would never be so harebrained as to throw away his advantage on a combat. But he might be brought to it, meaning he might be convinced of it, said Glozell in a much lower voice. Softly, said Sir Caspian. Step a little aside here, out of earshot of those sentries over there. Now, have I taken your lordship's meaning aright? Well, if the king undertook wager of battle, whispered Glozell, why, either he would kill or be killed. So, said Sir Caspian, nodding his head, and if he killed, we should have won the war. Well, certainly, and what if not? Why, if not, we should be as able to win it without the king's grace as with him. For I need not tell your lordship that Miraz is no very great captain. And after that, we should be both victorious and kingless. What is he hinting at? Luke?
They feel that their army was the war, and they need to go to the military.
Mm-hmm.
They would be victorious. The army was
Very good. Okay, so Glozell and Sir Caspian are like two captains in the king's army. Okay, they're in charge of people underneath them, so they're kind of high ranking, right? And they get together and they're like, the one guy, Sir Caspian, says, listen, Miraz isn't dumb. He's not going to agree to a one-on-one combat. We have the advantage here. Glozell's like, yeah, but we might be able to convince him to do it. And Sir Caspian's like, wait a second. Are you saying we want the king to do that? That would be a terrible idea. We might lose, and you want the king to do that? And Glozell's like, listen, if he wins the one-on-one battle, we're going to win the war, which is great. We're going to go home heroes. If he gets killed in combat, well, then we'll just take our army, which can win with or without Miraz, and we'll attack the Narnians. Then we'll win, and we'll have no king. So you and I could have a chance to be king. Okay? So we got some traitors amongst the Telmarines. What?
Technically, they couldn't be king even if they wanted to, because if Miraz dies, Caspian would become king and now no one can stop him.
Well, they would take care of him too, I'm sure. Okay. So he says, we should be both victorious and kingless. And it is your meaning, my lord, that You and I could hold this land quite as conveniently without a king as with one? Glozel's face grew ugly. Not forgetting, said he, basically, let's not forget that it was us who first put him on the throne. And in all the years that he has enjoyed it, what fruits have come our way? What gratitude has he shown us? Ah, say no more, answered Topespian. But look, here comes one to fetch us to the king's tent. Why else are Glozel and Topespian ready for Miraz to be gone? And write in this paragraph. Caleb? So they can be king. There's another reason they say it right here. Let's not forget, it was us who first put him on the throne. And in all the years that he's been king, what have we gotten out of it? Go ahead. Do what? I can't hear you. They're going to kill him because, A, they want to be king. What's the other reason why they're mad at Miraz? Connor?
Because basically, when they made him king, they helped him become king, and then he's given them.
Yeah, they helped him get to the throne. They helped him become king. And what has he given them as thanks for that? Hardly nothing. And they're like, listen, time is up, pal. We're getting back at you. When they reached Miraz's tent, they saw Edmund and his two companions seated outside it and being entertained with cakes and wine, having already delivered the challenge, and withdrawn while the king was considering it. When they saw them thus at close quarters, the two Telmarine lords thought all three of them very alarming. Inside they found Miraz, unarmed, and finishing his breakfast. His face was flushed, like he was red in the face, like he was mad, and there was a scowl on his brow. There, he growled, flinging the parchment across the table to them. See what a pack of nursery tales our jackanapes of a nephew has sent us. By your leave, sire, said Glozel. If the young warrior whom we have just seen outside is the King Edmund, mentioned in the writings of old, then I wouldn't call him a nursery tale, but a very dangerous knight. King Edmund? Ha! Said Miraz. Does your lordship believe those old wise fables about Peter and Edmund and all the rest? I believe my eyes, your majesty, said Glozel. Well, this is to no purpose anyway, said Miraz. But as touching as this challenge is, I suppose there is only one opinion between us. He's like, we're all going to agree on this, right? I suppose so indeed, sire, said Glozel. And what is that? Asked the king. Most infallibly to refuse it, said Glozel. He's like, oh no, we totally think you should just not agree to fight them. For though I've never, but okay, listen. I want you to know.
Oh, they're baiting him.
He says, most infallibly to, he's like, no, you should definitely say no. But it's not for the reason you think. What he's about to say is not the reason why he should actually say no. Okay? He says, oh, no, you should refuse it. For though I have never been called a coward, I must plainly say that to meet that young man in battle, that's more than my heart would serve me for. And if, as is likely, his brother the High King is more dangerous than he is, why, on your life, my Lord King, have nothing to do with him. Why does he say he should refuse the challenge? Layla?
Edmund looks strong and fierce, so why not have the High King be stronger?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I do not want to lose to Miraz.
Very good. So Jacob's right. Stop that. Jacob's right. They are baiting him. Okay? They're saying, you don't want to, you should definitely say no. Those guys, they look scary. I would, no. Okay? And because they know that's going to be insulting to Miraz. Look what he says. Plague on you, cried Miraz. That was not the sort of counsel I wanted. Do you think I'm asking you if I should be afraid to meet this Peter? If there even is such a man. Do you think I fear him? I wanted your counsel on the policy of the matter, whether we, having the advantage, should hazard it on a wager of battle. He's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not asking if I should be afraid of this guy. I'm asking if it's smart for me to agree to this when we have the bigger army. I'm not afraid of him. And Glozell says, to which I can only answer, your majesty, said Glozell, that for all reasons the challenge should be refused. There is death in this strange knight's face. Oh my word, there you are again, said Miraz, now thoroughly angry. Are you trying to make it appear that I am as great a coward as your lordship? Your majesty may say your pleasure, said Glozell sulkily. Oh, you talk like an old woman, Glozell, said the king. What say you Lord Topethian? Oh, do not touch it, sire, was the reply. And what your majesty says of the policy of the thing comes in very happily. It gives your majesty excellent grounds for a refusal, without any cause for questioning your majesty's honor or courage. He says, listen, I think you should refuse it, but think about it. The policy, the fact that we have a bigger army and they have a smaller army, that gives you a good excuse. You don't even have to tell anyone that you're afraid. Just tell them that you have a bigger army and that it made more sense that way. Don't worry about it. How do you think Miraz is going to respond? Brooklyn? Very good. So they're baiting him, right? They're making it seem like, oh, no, there's no way you can beat them. But don't worry. You don't got to tell anyone that. Just tell them that it was because the policy of the thing. We have a bigger army. It made more sense when really we know that those guys look really dangerous. Okay? Great heaven! Exclaimed Miraz, jumping to his feet. Are you also bewitched today? Do you think I am looking for grounds to refuse it? You might as well call me a coward to my face.
Okay, you're a coward.
The conversation was going exactly as the two lords wished, so they said nothing. I see what it is, said Miraz, after staring at them as if his eyes would start out of his head. You are as lily-livered as hares yourselves, and you don't have the effrontery to imagine my heart after the likeness of yours. Grounds for refusal indeed, excuses not for fighting. Are you even soldiers? Are you Marines? Are you men?
No.
And if I do refuse it, as all good reasons of captaincy and martial policy urge me to do, you will think and teach others to think that I was afraid. Is it not so? No man of your majesty's age, said Glozell, would be called coward by any wise soldier for refusing the combat with a great warrior in the flower of his youth. Okay, here's the nail in the coffin. Okay? Glozell says, oh, no. No one's going to blame an old man like you for turning down a battle against a young man like him.
Yeah, you're fine. We're going to kick your...
No one would accuse an old, weak man like yourself of saying no to a young, nimble warrior like that. Oh, here he goes. He's going to go off. So, I'm supposed to be a dotard with one foot in the grave as well as a dastard, roared Miraz. I'll tell you what it is, my lords. With your womanish counsels, ever shying from the true point, which is one of policy, you have done the very opposite of your intent. I had meant to refuse it, but I'll accept it. Do you hear me? Accept it. I'll not be shamed because some witchcraft or treason has frozen both of your bloods. Please, we beseech your majesty, which means we beg you, sir, please don't do this, said Glozell. But Miraz had flung out of the tent, and they could hear him bawling out his acceptance to Edmund. The two lords looked at one another and chuckled quietly. I knew he would do it if he were properly chafed, said Glozell. So he's like, if If we could make him properly angry about just the right thing, I knew he would agree to say yes. But I'll not forget that he called me a coward. That shall be paid for. Alright, so now we're back to Aslan's house. Okay? Ooh, my throat hurts from all that yelling. No water. There was a great stirring at Aslan's house when the news came back and was communicated to the various creatures. Edmund, with one of Miraz's captains, had already marked out the place for the combat, and ropes and stakes had been put around it. 2 Telmarines were to stand at 2 of the corners, and 1 in the middle of one side, as marshals of the lists. 3 marshals for the other 2 corners and the other side were to be furnished by the High King. Peter was just explaining to Caspian that he could not be one, because his right to the throne was what they were fighting about, when suddenly a thick, sleepy voice said, "Your Majesty, please." Peter turned, and there stood the eldest of the Bulgy Bears. "If you please, Your Majesty," he said. "I'm a bear, I am." "To be sure you are, and a good bear, too, I don't doubt," said Peter. "Yeah," said the bear, "but it was always a right of the bears to supply 1 marshal of the lists." "But don't let him do that," whispered Trumpkin to Peter. "I mean, he's a good creature, but he'll shame us," meaning he'll embarrass us. "He'll go to sleep, and he will suck his paws in front of the enemy too." Okay? Suck his paws like sucking your thumb. Okay? Would it be very intimidating if the bear, as one of the marshal of the list, stood there at the battle, fell asleep, and started sucking his thumb? No. So Trumpkin's like, that would be super embarrassing. Let's not do that. Okay? Alright, let me explain real quick what marshal of the list is. Woo! I gotta hurry. Okay, marshal of the list. So, in the middle of the field, they've marked out a square where Peter and Miraz are going to fight. Okay, here's Peter, here's Miraz. The Telmarines get to vote, get to send 3 men to watch. Okay, so they'll have a Telmarine, and a Telmarine. Okay, to make sure that Peter's following the rules, everything's good to go, and their men are still in order. And if the Narnians break their promise, kind of like Pizarro did, right, and they end up attacking anyway, these guys are here to protect him. Okay? So they get to send 3 marshals, and then so do the Narnians. They get to put a man here, here, and here. Okay? So they're discussing, what we're reading about is the Narnians discussing who's going to go and be these three marshals. The bear wants to be one, but he ain't going to do a good job. He's going to fall asleep and suck his thumb. Let's see who they do send. Hold on, I got to hurry because we're almost done. "Well, I can't help that," said Peter, "because he's quite right. The bears had that privilege. I can't imagine how it has been remembered all these years, when so many other things have been forgotten." "Please, Your Majesty," said the bear. "Well, it is your right," said Peter, "and you shall be one of the marshals. But you must remember not to suck your paws." "Of course not," said the bear in a very shocked voice. "Why, you're doing it right now, this minute!" bellowed Trumpkin. The bear whipped his paw out of his mouth and pretended he hadn't heard anything. Look, see the picture below? "Sire!" came a shrill voice from near the ground. "Ah, Reepicheep," said Peter, after looking up and down and around as people usually did when addressed by the mouse. So it's kind of like this. "Sire!" And he's like, "Oh, Reepicheep." "Sire," said Reepicheep, "my life is ever at your command, but my honor is my own. Sire, I have among my people the only trumpeter in your Majesty's army. I had thought perhaps we might have been sent with the challenge. Sire, my people are grieved. Perhaps if it were your pleasure that I could be a marshal of the lists, it would content them." A noise not unlike thunder broke out from somewhere overhead at this point, as giant Wimbleweather burst into one of those not very intelligent laughs to which the nicer sorts of giants are so liable. He checked himself at once and looked as grave as a turnip by the time Reepicheep discovered where the noise came from. So Reepicheep's like, I'll be a marshal, and the giant goes, oh, sorry.
Oh, you serious?
No, I'm afraid it would not do, said Peter very gravely. Some humans are afraid of mice. Well, yeah, I've observed that, sire, said Reepicheep. Well, and it wouldn't be quite fair to Miraz, Peter continued, to have in sight anything that might abate the edge of his courage. So Peter says, no, sometimes humans can be afraid of mice, and it wouldn't really be fair. We don't want to give ourselves any kind of advantage. We want it to be a fair fight.
Oh, there's your switch.
Your Majesty is the mirror of honor, said the mouse, with one of his admirable bows. And on this matter we have but a single mind. I thought I heard someone laughing just now. If anyone present wishes to make me the subject of his wit, I am very much at his service. With my sword, whenever he has his leisure. Okay, Reepicheep does not take no making fun of him. Okay? When he hears the giant laugh at him being a marshal, he says, I think I hear someone laughing. Well, if anyone wants to laugh at me, I challenge them to a battle with my sword. Okay? He's like, don't you dare laugh at me, I'll take you down. An awful silence followed this remark, which was broken by Peter saying, Giant Wimbleweather and a bear and the centaur Glenstorm shall be our marshals. The combat will be... Stop. The combat will be at 2 hours after noon. Dinner at noon precisely. I say, said Edmund as they walked away, I suppose it is all right. I mean, I suppose you can beat him, right? That's what I'm fighting him to find out, said Peter. And tomorrow we'll have to see how the battle goes. So just real quick, okay? The Narnians sent the bear, Glenstorm, and the giant.
Aww.
Okay?
You want the Reepicheep happen?
No, they didn't let Reepicheep do it. Not because he couldn't, but because it would give them an unfair advantage.
Wait,
Good old Peter.
so saying?
Yes.
If the mouse was to fight the giant literally just could go like this.